Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming on this evening. So I'm opening the meeting because we don't have a chair at the moment, because unfortunately the mayor and the deputy mayor are unable to attend. So the process now is that we need to elect a chair for this meeting. Do I have any nominations?
I propose Councillor Dole.
Yeah. Dole, do you accept the nomination?
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder?
No, you don't.
Seconder?
From the back.
Right, okay, so can we vote on that, please? Everyone in favour of Mike taking the chair? Ah, perfect. Please. Welcome back.
It's a flying visit, I assure you. Okay.
I'm going to take a picture and send it to your wife.
Why not?
She knows what he looks like. No. I think he was on pain of death.
Excellent, Jenny. Oh, thank you. All right, let's kick it off. Members of the public are invited to comment on matters within the parish.
Just a couple of things. It's a pity the mayor's not here. I would have liked to have a chat about an appointment. The mayor and finance is involved in. From the agenda, I am happy to see that there's going to be discussion of manager Parish Council applying to the National Lottery Purchase Fund and grant for the trail. Based in Livermore Church, the trail is a great asset for that community. Lord's Court, it's nice to see that Lord's Court is coming up without any indication that it's going to be what I should call a secret session. The public would quite like to know what is happening in Lord's Court. And perhaps that may be tied in with movement of reserves, which is an interesting. So,
Okay, thanks. Chris?
Yes, recycling. I'm a fan of recycling. I try to recycle. And because where I live, I don't have anywhere to store some of their paraphernalia. I have my own system, which is I save it up in various places in my home. And when I have enough to take it away, I used to just drive up there and offload it, and where we go again for another 2 months. I found out in the past week that you don't have to book a session, right? Online, so I can't do. But there is a phone number. So the phone number is 0300 1234 141, and you can have half an hour. So obviously I'll have to comply with that, but it'll be interesting to see how it pans out, because last week I was up there at the beginning of the week, and there was nothing, no information. And a friend of mine got the next day, and they were handing out leaflets telling you about the change. So during last week, I got rather heated, unfortunately, but that's fine. I can do that. Now, there's the town council who will still get asked when there are new estates or houses that need cement. They still do that?
I would have thought so, yeah.
You think so? Right. So the next time you have a little group of houses, I would like to suggest the name of a gentleman who I consider to be a local hero, and that is Captain Peter Millward Herbert. He's actually the father of Vicky, who unfortunately is not here. But that gentleman, by his campaigning in the 1950s, prevented the sea lock from being made into a spillway, and most of the lower basin becoming a basin as a car. So if in the near future you get asked, so I think, are there not 4 houses or so being built up on the edge of the Binnaby estate? Is that correct?
You could be correct in that.
Yes. Well, if they want to give them a name, I would suggest that perhaps you ought to suggest that, and then it could be Peter Millward, Herbert Way, or something like that, and see what happens. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's the local hero. And so if they got their way, that part of town will be completely different now. He wanted to provide what is known as a bunkering service, where vessels can come in and refuel, do minor repairs. So it might not have looked as pretty, but it probably would have been employing. And of course, if you extend that, it might have had an effect as to whether we actually lost the railway. But I like to dream.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Paul?
No, thank you.
Okay, cool. To receive apologies and accept the reasons for any non-attendance.
So I have apologies from Councillor Herbert Coulson for personal reasons, Councillor Haynes for work reasons, Councillor Hannah for personal reasons, and Councillor Browning for work reasons. I've also got apologies from Cornwall Councillors Chopak and Tilby.
Okay, thank you. To receive any declarations of interest on items on the agenda and agree any dispensations.
I've not received any.
Okay. To receive the mayor's report, the mayor is not here.
So he has.
He has emailed one out. I assume everybody's at it. Okay, cool. To note any reports from Cornwall councillors.
Oh, we don't talk to them.
Oh, is it me already?
We're in the shotgun session, early, Peter.
I don't want to take up too much time, but I have been incredibly busy this month, and I seem to be busy with stuff that are not pleasant things. Like lots of people being made homeless yet again, which is like awful. I've been to Truro on a couple of accounts. I've been to the Economic Growth and Development meeting on the 12th of November, and then on the 26th of November there was a full council meeting. There's quite an interesting debate on the farmers' inheritance tax, which I spoke on. If anybody wants to know what my thoughts on that, I won't go into it now, but I will speak separately to anyone that's interested. I did represent with Tatiana on the 15th of November the Super Council. That's not strictly a Cornwall Council business, that was a this council business, wasn't it? There was some interesting stuff coming out of that about some new laws that are coming into place about large gatherings of people and extra care you have to take to make sure those events are secure. Mr. Gill did mention the new booking system at Tiscott. I've got personal experience because when I've been up to help my son out who used to live in London, we used to dump all his waste at a place called Wandsworth Dump off the main Wandsworth Directory, which is quite an interesting place, but you had to book. Right, but what it did do is it meant you got straight in and dumped your stuff. Literally, you just drove in, drove out. It was a slick operation. And the last time that I used Tiscott Wood, I actually ended up queuing on the A39. It's the first and only time I've ever done that, but I did, and I felt extremely vulnerable about being perhaps crashed into by a car going up in the other direction. So I think it should be a good thing, but I understand what Mr. Jewell is saying about if you're not an internet user or you haven't got a smartphone and a computer at home, it does make it more difficult for you. So I think we need to have a think about the accessibility and perhaps learn from any lessons of this particular exercise. You will have all seen the flyer or the circular that went round about the bank by the lock gates. I mean, Vicky sent me pictures of it leaking earlier this year by the spillway. And that's all because there are some significant voids in that bank that runs down towards the lock gate on the northern side. So there'll be Cormac on site backfilling it with a grouting. I did ask for an in-depth briefing on this, which I've had, right? And they are planning on using I'm not sure if I'm really happy with it or not. I was persuaded in the end it was right, but rather than using a cementitious grout, they are using a polymer grout, which apparently goes in incredibly runny and then expands to fill the voids, something akin to builder's foam. But apparently it's been tried and tested many, many times, and is thought to be the most appropriate product, and it is much more likely to be able to fill the voids up than the cement-based stuff, which apparently isn't quite so runny in the first instance. Once that work is complete, they're going to go on then to do the repairs to the walkway. We haven't seen the final plans to that, but we're told that there's going to be a fairly decent injection of CTAP money to make sure that we retain the original rails and the granite sets that are all in that zone. but I haven't seen the final plans for that yet, which I know Mr. Barrett will be interested in. The work on the walking and the cycling improvements at the moment around the bridge by the mini roundabout are ongoing at a standard glacial Cormac pace. I can't say that it gives me pride to know that they're part of the organisation that I represent, because things seem to go incredibly slowly, but there we are. Finally, well, it'll be mentioned separately, but I think Katie is going to have an awful lot more to say on this, but on Tuesday there was a young people's symposium, I think was the word, here in Bude. And it was a really good get-together of lots of different stakeholders talking about the lack of youth services and the formation of a steering group to try to get much more of a focus on this. But I don't want to steal any of Katie's thunder because she was much more involved in it than I was. Finally, I had the final results of the SIL funding application sent to me, and I busily looked through it to see what money the Bude had got, and to find that actually we hadn't made any applications ourselves to the SIL fund, which I was a bit disappointed in. But Stratton Primary School did get, I think, 85,000 quid towards their community hub, which is going to be attached to their cycle path area. And I'll mention it now, but we'll probably come back to this, and this is about the levy that we received from Cornwall Council for car parks and running the toilets. So we've received 60,000 quid every year, which is notionally based on a 10p per car parking levy, but it was a flattened rate. Cornwall Council have written to us, I mentioned this at the last council, to say it's going to end as of next year, so we've effectively had our last payment, so we're now £60,000 down. I've had conversations with lots and lots of people and sent emails to lots and lots of people, but I had a conversation with David Harris, who's the deputy leader of the council this evening just before I got here, and he said, well, although you might be losing 60,000 quid, the increase in your tax base due to the second homes is going to bring you in an extra 90,000 this year, so maybe you should just be happy with that. I didn't accept that argument because I said I believe it should be the users of the car park that are subsidising the cost of the toilets, not the people of Bude. So the argument is going on.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to the minutes. Full council to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of November 2024. 78. Tom, any questions on that, or?
No, I suppose we approve then.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favour? Against? Abstain? Okay, that's through. Committees to receive and note the minutes of the committee meetings listed below. Planning Committee 6th and 20th of November 2024. Opposed? I'll second it. All in favour? Against? Abstain? Cool. Culture and Heritage, 14th of November 2024.
In Vicky's absence, I'll propose.
Okay, seconded. All in favour? Against? Abstain? Facilities and Environmental Services, 21st of November 2024.
Closed.
Okay, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Corporate and Democratic Services, 28th of November 2024. Opposed? I'll second it. All in favour? Against? Abstain? Recommendations, FES 08. I don't know I was doing this, I would have put my contacts in. FES 082/24 to recommend the full council that Bude Football Club youth be permitted exclusive use of the land adjacent to the pitch and putt building currently in use by the public for Sunday League football matches for a trial period of 12 months. Any licence agreement or charge for use to be investigated by officers.
I don't
say I'm against this, but can I ask if anyone knows? Why can't they use the football club? I have tried to keep up on it. I've said it. I'm sorry. Not that I'm. Please don't think I'm against the idea of helping them either.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think part of the reason is they've now got 13 youth teams, such as the popularity of the game, and I think a good number of those are girls' teams, following the success of certain places' football teams. So yes, I think it's just the sheer numbers.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
I had a suggestion post the meeting that we could investigate what it would cost or the logistics around offering them use of the pitch and park toilets for their Sunday league football matches. They did offer to run the children across to Crooklets to go to the loo, but thinking about it subsequently, I hadn't seen anything about it before on the night, and so I didn't really think it through. And I think personally that if it's too problematic, that's fine. But I just think we should have a look at the logistics of it. I'd like to sort of propose that as an extra bit.
So we have been discussing options for them, and part of some of the options for the youth facility is that users or group leaders would have a key fob system to access the doors so that they could then use the facilities. So we're looking to produce an agreement for the town football club that would mirror something similar to what we would be proposing for the youth facility, because it's obviously all in the same area of land, and that would be a fob system, so when they're using the pitches they would have access. So we haven't finalised all the details, but that is the intention, part of the agreement, if that's helpful.
Then what about the school pitches? Can't they use those, or do they use them already?
Been a while since I spoke to anyone, but
I mean, I
don't want to miss.
They're all flat. They're ready to go.
If I recall correctly, and I emphasise if, the junior school put an age limit on what age. I think you had to be primary school age to be allowed to use their pitch. So
I walk past the school pitch most mornings.
Yeah.
Up towards Morrison's.
I mean, I would imagine that right next door, they must.
One of these schools, they should be able to use the pitch.
And it's possible that, as the deputy clerk said, it's sheer weight of numbers. 13 youth teams trying to play games at weekends. You need more than one pitch.
Yeah, well, there you go. You could easily get 3 games in a day up there on Sunday morning.
I agree. But do we want to let them use this pitch is the question. So I'll go on.
Land adjacent to the issue park, which lands?
To the front right-hand side.
Yeah, the other half. What is the croquet pitch one side? What used to be the tennis courts, the half that's not used by the croquet club. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's got kind of 5-a-side football nets there now for the public to use.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think my understanding from the Bude Youth football is that they have really tried. They have tried with Budehaven, they've tried a lot of places to get sufficient pitches. And they didn't come to us because we were sort of first choice. They came to us because they're pretty desperate. And it seems to me that it's a football pitch. We put up goals. People go and play on it now. All that's happening is a more organised group is going to play on there in a league structure or a more formal structure. So for me, it's an absolute no-brainer to help out an organisation which is thriving but has hit a bottleneck because they literally can't find pitches to play on.
Was that a proposal?
Well, I'll propose.
Oh, sorry, you had your hand up and then.
Really sorry, but I do want to ask how Steve feels about this, because it's going to come down on him for cleaning. Not him personally, but his team is. Can I just ask if the impact on the
in terms of the toilet.
Yeah, that would have helped if I told you that bit, sorry.
So it won't necessarily fall to his team. So as part of the wider youth facility, we've obviously need to have a cleaning rota in place. So it could fall to other members of council staff that do cleaning, because it could be additional hours for them rather than specifically the facilities team.
Does that cost any more for the council? And will we be able to offset it?
So it would cost in terms of the hours that that person would be paid to clean. But then if we're charging for the use of the facility, some of that could be offset. I don't have those figures with me, I'm sorry.
It might also, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, might also depend on how many toilets the town council is cleaning in the future.
Yeah.
That's not our decision.
Did you have your hand up? No. So, Peter?
I've no problem in allowing them to use the pitch for Sunday league matches. It seems probably quite a nice thing to do, to see children playing on it. But I have got a concern about the possibility of the building getting a bit dirty. Well, I mean, you know, kids playing in mud, it's bound to get dirty, and it will need cleaning if they use it. And I just wonder, perhaps, if we offered them use of the pitch and putt building, right, but there'd be a cleaning charge attached to it, which just covers the cost. And they could choose to take it or not, because they might say, well, look, we're happy with the toilets and crooklets.
I mean, we could put it in the lease. Let's see.
I mean, that was one of my points, was that I think, yeah, if they really want access to the toilets, then absolutely we should give it to them. I mean, letting them use the pitch, there's not even a question about that, because we put goals up and we let people play there whenever they want. So arguing about that, you know, it just wouldn't make sense. But I think maybe just spending like a couple of minutes just asking them, do you want access to the toilets? If you do, this is what potentially it could mean. I mean, they did mention like costs of other pitches that they've used and played on. I mean, in excess of £50 a time, which for them is an extraordinary amount of money that they can't afford, especially when you've got 13 teams playing and you need 13 pitches. So giving them the option, or just spending like 5 minutes, say, asking them, would you like access? This is what we can offer if you do. And then giving them the choice of whether they want to or not. Seems like a sensible idea.
Okay, so
you
propose this, are you happy to take that amendment?
I'm happy to have the caveat of a discussion over the toilet.
Okay.
And the potential charge for any cost incurred to the council.
All right, I'll second that. If everybody's happy, they know what we're going to vote on. All right, all in favour? Unanimous. Excellent. Item 6, to approve a letter of support from Marham Church Parish Council's application to the National Lottery Heritage Fund for a grant towards the Hill Valley project. All seen the letter, haven't you? Who wants to kick off, Tom?
Yeah, I don't know how much you want to discuss this. I can give you a little bit of background. As Peter mentioned about this, just looking here at the grant app, the Silfund awards across Cornwall, and I see some of the town councils and parish councils, they've had multiple awards over the last few years. Marham Church Parish Council did actually apply to the Silfund, but didn't get past the expression of interest stage, which was a bit disappointing. Whether it had anything to do with the fact that we had no support at a Cornwall councillor level, which was a bit disappointing. I know Peter and Councillor Tilby supported the Stratton application, and it's a different fund, but the community levelling up programme, Morningstar Parish Council got an award of 113,000 from that one, with the support of their Cornwall councillor. We had no support at
Madam Judge, for our application. So there we go. On a more positive note, the Community Infrastructure Levy, Community Ownership Fund, which was one that we all know about. At least the only information I can give you is that it is going to be assessed. There was a time when it looked like it could just disappear completely. We don't know whether we're going to get zapped for that one or not, but at least we'll have a decision one way or another, and we're hopeful. So onto the National Lottery, there was it wasn't called an expression of interest, but similar to an expression of interest sent, and what we got back was very encouraging, actually, and it's to fund the whole project. So we obviously are going to, and one of the things they asked for was evidence of support from at least 6 groups or whatever in the area, and what better group than this august body to, well, joking aside, this council represents a population of 10,000 people, and the support would be support for this letter would be strong evidence that it is of a certain value or huge value to the community. And there is no request for money. There's no request for officer time. There's no request for anything other than this letter, approval of this letter.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. I spent many happy hours there as a youth, and I still walk the dog there every now and again. So I propose we just offer a letter of support. Seconded? All right, all in favour? Unanimous. And now the games begin. To discuss option for One Lord's Court and approve any associated actions. Are you giving a report first, or?
Yeah, I can just kind of try and summarise. I apologise for the length of the report. I tried to cut it down as much as I could. However, there's obviously an awful lot of information to be considered, a lot of research, a lot of phone calls to obtain the information as fully and as diligently as we've been able to. So, unfortunately, I suppose the biggest update since the last working group meeting is the conversations and email exchanges that have been had with Cornwall Community Land Trust, which is the central land trust for Cornwall, who North Kernow Land Trust would basically utilise to support them. And they are unfortunately not in a position to support this project or any other projects. I had numerous exchanges with different people there and telephone calls to try and really push our kind of position, but basically they said that just due to the lack of funding for the sector, that they wouldn't be taking anything on any further. All they will be doing is assessing available land which has a potential to build on, but all they can do at this point is assess it. So kind of didn't take that section any further after that. In terms of the renovation budget, so we received the full report from the surveyor, and I spent some time discussing that with her and going through each item in a bit more detail, and has produced a full budget breakdown, which includes the assessments, the minimum and maximum fees, Hopefully I've tried to answer as many questions today that have been raised on those figures. I appreciate it's not particularly straightforward. We said we've used the higher assessments to from the report.
Put the drugs away for Christ's sake.
Sorry, are you here for anything specific?
I just got to introduce myself, so I'll leave you to do your thing and then,
Okay, that's good.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, if you want to do that now, because we're probably about to dive into a very long and so rather than time,
so Nina was going to come along as well, but just to let you all know, I'm the new MBM alongside Nina. So my name's Frank. I've been here probably about 4 weeks now. Just thought I'd pop in and say hello, really. It's been a very busy day, so I'm sorry I'm late. But as you can see, it's been quite busy indeed today. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, if you've got any questions for me or anything, otherwise I'll get out of your way. But just.
Anybody got anything?
So just get your name again for the minutes.
It's Frank, so PT Morgan.
Thank you, lovely.
How you finding it?
Peter?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, I'm coming over from Devon, so.
Right.
Oh,
don't worry.
So well, you're doing so well.
Eddie. Right. Peter, did you hand up?
Sorry, I'm not sure. Yeah, thanks. My wife told me that in Bude it had been I've been out of Bude all day, but she told me locked down because somebody's been hurt in some sort of incident. Is there anything you can tell us on that?
Other than that, they're being looked after, really, not a lot. I mean, it is. Yeah, we had to shut the road down just because of the seriousness of it, but we've got enough officers and things, so yeah, it got managed, and members of the public were really good. To be fair, they helped me out, so I was on my own for a while. So yeah, but everyone seems to be okay at the moment. So.
I'm just out of interest, if I may. I don't know exactly where it happened, but you know where Boots is. You've got a cut through, which I think is called Bellevue Avenue, which leads on to Bellevue itself.
Yeah.
Right. Every year, some poor, unfortunate, mature, often lady or person gets blown over by the wind because it blows a hoolie on that corner, and they break a hip, and their life is probably never the same again.
Okay.
I often wonder if there's anything that could be done about that.
Well, yeah, bit of common sense, you'd just stay in, wouldn't you? I mean, be honest, I mean, I've last winter we had the gales, I had at least 2 old deers across that road, and they had no way should they've been out.
Just on that point, I've been Blackpool for a while, and on the corner there, the wind was, I'm going up the wall and I can actually move. And what they have is just a guardrail on the corner. And every corner you need, so I'm working in the ground all day. You come around that corner and back, it hits you. So
Probably more our remit than his, to be fair.
Well, it's worth mentioning because it's a
safety. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly off the back of it, because that's where it's been. So potentially, if that's something you want to look at, this might be the time to do it. But yeah, just thought really.
You've got two choices. You knock the Grenville down or you knock Harkin Terrace down. That would say that's well.
Well, this sounds out of my remit.
Yeah.
Not with the Grenville.
Yeah, other than that,
Okay, well, thanks for popping in. It's nice to meet you. Cheers. Was I'm probably still busy. Okay, sorry, Frankie. Back to.
Lost my train of thought. So yeah, breakdown. So this is the numbers on the left are all the different items from the surveyor's report that need addressing. And then you've got a breakdown of fees, which is a percentage allocated based on the total amount. Preliminaries, risk, then the fee amount, and then some inflation's put in there, dependent upon when you'd like to do the work. So anyway, it's just a educated assessment of what we have in front of us. Obviously, until you have contractors bid for the work, you never really fully know the extent, and until you start taking the building apart, you're not going to really know the full extent of the work that's needed. But it's hopefully an indication for you of kind of what would be required. Off the back of that, there is obviously a deficit there of 340,000. So part of the working group sessions, we discussed various information that I felt would be useful, and that one of those was looking at public works loans and looking at different year terms and how that would affect the interest payments. So again, this is just an example. Having spoken with the people who organise all the public works loans, they, until you really apply and have the term and the interest rate set, obviously it's very difficult to estimate precisely, but this is kind of as clear as I could get it, really. Any other business loans that were investigated were far higher than the 5.3%, which is the best rate that they could offer. I just thought I would list out the criteria for public works loans in case anyone wasn't familiar with what is required for that. There is obviously the option to budget in the precept, and I just tried to indicate there that obviously that amount would have a significant impact, which I don't think is too difficult to figure out. We then looked at what the return for the property could be. So I spoke confidentially with a local agent who was aware of the building and its condition and discussed with them potential rental income, and they assessed that similar with what is currently being charged, and they gave a figure for their fee, so if they were to be used as an agent, what that would be, and a potential sale price for the property, which he felt as a vacant property could go on the open market rather than auction, which is obviously how it was purchased. I just wanted to then explain what flying freehold was, because it would affect the property if that was something the council wanted to look into, because of how the building is constructed in terms of the shop and the access to the flats, and obviously the implications of trying to separate the two legally makes it, it's not impossible, but it makes it very challenging, and it's also not very attractive to purchasers because of the constraints that it gives. And then what feels like very short options, really, given all of the information, but it's kind of, I just came to kind of the viable options for you and what they are. One is to sell the property as a whole on the open market, including the shop in its current condition. The second is to keep the property and obtain a public works loan to undertake the renovations with a view that the flats could then be rented out. And then the third, which is kind of a bit left field and different, it's an option of kind of doing both, so keeping the shop but moving its location and then selling the property as well. So it's as kind of comprehensive as I could make it. So I'm happy to take any more questions and go through any of it in more detail if you need to.
Kevin, Sean, and then Katie.
Well, I have less in the way of questions and more in the way of a plea to this council. This council, and I don't just mean everybody around this table tonight, I mean this council going back decades, have had aspirations to do certain things. Support local businesses, support and facilitate affordable and social housing, preserve the essential character of our communities, and to stop it being hollowed out through second home ownership, gentrification, Airbnb and the like. And I put it to you that Lord's Court does all those things. Does all those things, and also it's preserving an historic building in the heart of Stratton. Now you may say, well, okay, it does that, but it does it very, very inefficiently. We could have done all of this better. Well, maybe we could, but we didn't. We had opportunities and we didn't. And I suggest to everyone around this table and everyone listening that if we hadn't acted, what would have happened, 99.99%, is Stratton would have lost its post office straight away because the shop was going to be evicted, they would have been evicted, the post office would have gone. There would also, I suggest, be a move for a change of use planning permission to get rid of the shop. And you can say, okay, that's all right. We'll get a friendly, benevolent developer to build us a shop. Well, a friendly, benevolent developer has not built us a medical centre. And I don't know of any developers who have gone above and beyond the absolute minimum in providing social housing. So I think it's totally illusory to pretend that if we hadn't acted, we could have somehow saved the shop and the post office in Stratton. We would have wrung our hands and said how sorry we were, but that would have gone. So then, can we renovate? Well, we've recently undertaken a very substantial job of moving the Storm Tower. And I suggest that that was a bigger job than renovating Lord's Court. And previous iterations of this council have done very substantial renovations to the castle and very substantial renovations to this building. And we are good at spending money in Bude and this little area of Bude. But I put it to everyone that we're not so good at spending money in Stratton. And Stratton is the historic part of the town. And probably, with climate change, Stratton might be around for a bit longer than Bude, but we'll leave that to one side. So you might say, okay, it was all right to buy it, and we could probably do it up. But we shouldn't be in the business of being a commercial landlord or a residential landlord. Well, we already are. We are a commercial landlord for the council tea rooms and the wharf units, and we are a residential landlord for the schoolhouse. So we do it already. And there's no reason to think that we couldn't make a success of being a residential and a commercial landlord for a property in Stratton. So then it comes down to money. And I believe that if we take the Public Works Board option, as we did for the castle and as we have done for renovations here, that we could undertake this work or oversee the undertaking of the work without putting a huge strain on the precept. So then we hit the elephant in the room. Is there the bandwidth for this council to do that and to fulfil our other aspirations? And if we look down on the list today, the next one on the line is the wheeled sports facility and the youth facility. Basically, can we do Lord's Court and those things? Well, I suggest that we have budgeted to be able to do the wheeled sports facility as well as Lord's Court if we manage to get a grant. Now, if we don't manage to get a grant, then the council would need to look again. And maybe if we were in a situation where we were presented with an inability to do the wheeled sports facility because of a failure of grant money, we would have to then consider what we're going to do with Lord's Court. But I suggest that the best way forward is the simplest way forward. To take out the loan, to take it out over whatever term this council sees fit, to get the work done, to make the building better and worth more money, and then if a future council decide that they don't want to do it, then at least then they've got a more valuable property to sell. So for me, having gone through all the pain to get where we are now, we would be crazy to do anything but pursue the option of renovating the building.
I'll come to you. I just want to. How on earth do you say we're not going to put this on the precept when we've paid 280,000 for it from reserves, which came from the precept? And you're talking about taking out a loan. Let's take the middle range one. We'll be paying back 562,000. Throw in the extra staff we've hired to get this project done. You're pushing over 800,000. 4,000 households in this town. That's £2,000 per person, per household. And you've sat there and said that it's not going to be a big hit.
No, I've not, what I've said,
I think you're ignoring a giant white elephant. In that it will hit people to the tune that I've just said.
There will be.
Every single part of this will go to the precept unless you get funding.
Though there could be opportunities for funding, separate grant funding, but we're not looking at that tonight. We're looking at we're looking at Public Works Board funding. And if we took the Public Works Board option, longer term, obviously in any development, you're going to have a hump where the costs are coming in. But after that hump, you've then got an asset. You've got a book asset of the value of the property, and you've got a rental income, and you've got a community hub in Stratton that is preserved. Where, you know, you could have made the same point about the castle. How many people in Bude put their hands up back in the day to create what we have in the castle? I suggest if we took the view that it's all about, you know, cost cutting, then that wouldn't have happened. That Castle Heritage Centre wouldn't have happened. And possibly this community centre wouldn't have happened. But
no, sorry, maybe I didn't ask the question clearly. You said that this wouldn't be a huge hype on the precept.
Not relative.
Pounds on the precept.
Not. Move on to the next speaker.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It was Sean. Yeah.
Kevin said all of the kind of salient points. I just want to loop back around to the fact that the council has acquired public works loans before, so we have got prior with this kind of way of working, and to reiterate that we have a very capable project manager who has just done what I would consider as almost the impossible and managed a project within a SSSI. This is quite a simple project in project terms. It's not simple, but it's simpler than other projects. My view is that we should be leaning towards option 2. Well, I'm in favour of option 2, which is keeping the property, which retains our original intention, obtain a public works loan and undertake the renovations, because we know that needs to be sorted out quickly for the current tenants of the shop and post office. So yeah, that's my view. I don't want to add anything else at the moment because I've talked enough.
Katie, Tom, Councillor Jennings.
Okay, I've got a completely different view, as I mean, people know my view on the whole Lord's Court situation. However, when I read this, I mean, the money side of things shocked me even more than I was shocked before. Maybe I look at things too simply, or I like to look at things percentage-wise, the percentage of people that will benefit from this to the percentage of money spent, that kind of aspect of it. And I just don't think it's a sensible option. And then I saw the third option and I thought, why was this not an option? I mean, I wasn't here when all of this started, so maybe it was thrown out there. But this, to me, fixes everything. As far as I am aware, the main reason of purchasing Lord's Court was to save the shop. So option 3, we can repair the ceiling so the shop can stay there and be safe. We can repurpose the toilet block, give them a brand new shop that's accessible with still public conveniences inside, and we can sell the shop, the whole building, and get money that this council so desperately needs. To me, there is no other option. That is like, you solve every single issue. Every single issue that you wanted to solve, you solve.
I think we did look at using the toilet block, and I think the main objection was there was a lot of elderly people crossing on that kind of the main road running through there. So it was a case of, would it be safe for a lot of people to be crossing the road? Am I right in? It was a long time ago, and there's a lot of meetings.
One of the other reasons was that at the time we looked at extending up to see if we could put accommodation on the top, and they said that we couldn't do that. It had to stay at the single story because of the drainage underneath and the flood risk and stuff. So if it stays, the structure and the foundations of the building stay and remain as they are, we own that outright. It's not a lease or anything, it's ours.
So that's why it was put as a.
So, Tom, Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, right. Well, process is, we seem to be going over and over again. And it was such a good idea. And it was a decision taken. But why are we spending meeting after meeting justifying it if it was such a good idea? But the thing is, we are where we are, and we need to. There's no point in retrospectively assessing what's been wrong, what's been right. We are where we are, and let's do the best we can. And thank you, Frankie, because some of the things that you've obviously done a very good job on investigating, looking into a lot of the stuff. I mean, the flying freehold was one of the things that options or things that I thought was worth exploring. Clearly, it is not. The land trust issue was one I thought was worth investigating. Clearly, it is, and that's not an option. And the third one I think that I was very much in favour of at least investigating was the Public Works Board loan and borrowing the money by that means, and it would, by and large, cover the rental would cover the repayments on a 25-year loan. So, like I'm sure everybody else here, especially and yourself included, I'm very, very conscious of the burden on the council taxpayers of Bude-Stratton and how we progress this with the least impact possible on the council taxpayers is, for me, is the main objective. Apart from looking obviously from making sure there's still a shop in Stratton, so I think personally the option of Public Works Board loan and renovation, doing all the renovations, etc., is what I favour.
Okay.
Well, I was sitting over there, and like most of you, I can't believe you lot even thought about buying the place, let alone bought. You did buy it. And the only thing you can do is hopefully now get rid of it and get your money back. Because that thing is going to be a millstone around the people of next Bude for not far longer than 25 years. That is going to cost what you would not believe. And just to keep it right will cost bloody more than you'll get every year coming in.
Yeah.
They're a joke, those buildings. Nobody would touch it. Blanchminster Trust took one look at that and they couldn't run away quick enough.
You're preaching to the choir, Councillor Jennings.
Again.
And you're going to now explain, now you're going to have to go around and explain to the people of Bude that you're going to put them in debt for the next 25 years.
Okay.
They're going to be all voting for you next April and May, aren't they?
Thank you.
Hey? No, they won't be voting for me.
Right. Let's move on to.
I can quite see the emotive side of the argument about providing homes, but this council is not geared up to be a social housing provider. It's a principal authority's job. Without going into great detail, because we're in public session, we all know around this table the trouble we've had with tenants. It's not a realistic prospect to expect that you're going to get your rental yield to cover the borrowing. It's just, in reality, it doesn't happen. Not on this scale, anyway. Fair enough, if you've got shed loads of money in the bank and you want to invest it and get something back, you might think, well, I'm borrowing the money, so that's good. But when you're borrowing the money and the commitment's there, it's burdening the council taxpayers of Bude 10, 15 or 25 years, whichever option was chosen if it goes down that road. I mean, a 10-year would be 3.5% increase on your council tax just to pay that repayment, assuming you didn't get enough rent in. But obviously, the longer the borrowing, the greater the amount repaid. Although it's fixed with Public Works Loan Board, as the officer has pointed out, it's total amount repayable for a 25-year loan is 625,000. And the primary reason for buying that, as has been said, is for the shop.
And as has been said by my colleagues already, the option perhaps to convert the toilet block, which isn't used a great deal by people, by looking at the volume of water that's used, it would sort things out. And from my recollection, there used to be a bit of a pull in there as well, a bit of a lay-by, which was grassed over. If that was reinstated, that would be ideal for people just to nip in and get some things. And the crossing aspect, I'm sure that our Cornwall councillors could get their heads together and perhaps put a zebra crossing or pelican crossing there to make it safer for people. And as has been said, it's on the level as well. And from what I understand, the existing shop is used a lot by people who've got second homes in Stratton. So the idea that it's just going to be for locals is not reality.
Okay, sorry. You had your hand up, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, go on.
If someone says my turn.
It is.
So I unfortunately or fortunately wasn't at the council meeting when this decision was taken to purchase it, but I did think about it long and hard, and I think I probably at the time would have supported the decision. Right, but now we've got the benefit of hindsight, and the reality is the building that we always knew would need a bit of attention needs more than a bit of attention. It needs, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about figures, but in the realms of £500,000 spending on it. To my mind, to ask the people of Bude-Stratton to effectively finance that is too much. And like Katie, I think if you're arguing a value for money, how many people have we genuinely helped and supported with that money, which is going to end up being, you know, by the time you paid interest, it's over £1 million, isn't it? Well over. That it just doesn't stack up as a sensible investment decision. And I know that a lot of the decisions we make aren't necessarily just purely about investment, but I think if you're looking at the social benefit versus the cost to the taxpayer, it doesn't add up for me, I'm afraid. That's the benefit of hindsight. Yeah, the idea of providing a location for the shop and providing some social housing, I still concur with. I think that's a wonderful idea, but I think it's just too much money and too much for this authority to manage it going into the future. I quite like the look of option 3. You know, we can patch up, keep the shop where it is while we repurpose the Stratton toilet block. I mean, I always thought that had potential because it's actually quite a significant sized building and you don't need that much space for toilets, to be quite honest. I think it would work could work quite well, but needs a bit more thought. So my vote is, you know, let's carry on, patch it up, keep the shop going for as long as it can. We could talk to the shop owners and say, this is our plans. You know, we don't want to see you homeless, so we'd like to move you down there. If they don't like it, they'll have plenty of time to, you know, make an alternative provision. They may wish themselves to buy Lord's Cot. You know, we're not going to be asking huge amounts of money for it. It should be within their capability to purchase it if they wish to, perhaps at a market rate. But anyway, for the moment, I like item 3.
Just on item 3 and the issue of crossing with a 20-mile-an-hour zone.
That will happen next year.
I was going to say that is, so it will be a lot safer there. Okay. So
I went and had a look a couple of mornings ago, and I can't believe they allowed people in that shop.
right.
That bloody ceiling looks like it could drop sometime soon.
We're not here to assassinate local businesses, Councillor Jelly.
But who's going to be responsible if somebody gets clobbered? This town council?
Oh.
Who's the one who's going to carry the can? It's always this council, isn't it?
Right. Sorry, I think Kevin had his hand up first, and then Frankie. Sorry, yeah, Philip. Got the names wrong.
The option to change use from toilet block to shop may appear initially attractive, but there is already a shop, and moving it down into the toilet block, making significant renovations, making significant alterations, possible planning permission issues, just seems to me like a lot of moving parts. If we're concerned about financial outlay, then I would look at selling the plot that contains the toilet block. If we're saying that we don't need a toilet block there, then, you know, there is the option to sell that bit of land as a way of raising more cash. My point is not that this council should be tied to being landlords or Lords Court forever. But if we move forward with the renovations, we then have control and we have options. If North Colonel Land Trust...
Point of order, Chair. I believe that a councillor is only really meant to speak once on each issue. Much as I respect my fellow councillor Colwell, he's treating this as like a one-man defence debate of...
I was hoping he was going to address one of the points.
Well, can I just ask that you go to other speakers and maybe just give him one last bite of the cherry at the
end? Right. Could you wrap it up, please, quickly, Councillor Colwell?
My point, which I was trying to address issues that have been raised during the debate that I'd not entered, but not dealt with in my opening remarks, is that the simplest option is to do the renovations. And it doesn't tie this council, it doesn't tie a future council to any course of action, because a future council could, if a land trust became available in a situation where they were able to take it on, could do that. And a future council could also look at other sources of funding, like potentially selling that toilet block if they needed funds for other projects. And I will withdraw. That's my final contribution.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I forgot who had the hand up next now. It was Philippa, sorry, yes.
I wanted to address Katie's thoughts about the decision-making process, because we're in a completely different decision-making situation now. We've got time on our side, and we can take a considered view of this, and we've had the building for quite a long time. So, what seems to you like a kind of an obvious solution now was not obvious at the time, because we were informed by the shop that the post office would not allow a move to take place. And if there was any break in the service of the post office, then the post office would be gone. So we were in a situation where we had a building where we would have had to have got planning permission on it. We would have had to have done works on it, and then we would have had to move the shop into it. And the building they were in was going to auction. So there was no time to spend 6 months rebuilding the toilet block in order to move, so I think you have to, give us a bit of leeway around what was actually happening at the time and the kind of pressures that we were under in terms of this. But having said that, now we have got some time. So now we have got the opportunity, I think, perhaps to look again at option 3, if that's what we want to do. I mean, my personal feeling, as well as you probably know from some questions that I've asked around today, is I wonder whether the figures that we're looking at are too high. I wonder whether we've erred on the side of, being too risk averse. So we're looking at a much darker situation potentially than I think we need to. Particularly, I don't understand why on earth we would incorporate VAT payments into a public works loan. So paying over 25 years VAT that we could have reclaimed within 3 months. So those kind of things I don't really understand. But having said that, I do understand it is an awful lot of money. So perhaps, whether it's 250,000 or whether it's 2,000 isn't the main point here. I'm still confused over which one I actually think I.
Yeah, again, I think we're falling into the trap, aren't we? I mean, there was nobody more critical, well, I won't say critical, but kind of critical of the decision. I wasn't here at the time, but I can see Katie's point. The only thing I would say that could have been explored, and I don't know why it wasn't, because it was raised with regard to the Hill Valley Trail, was the asset of community value. And that would have stalled the process. But again, I'm not going to beat councillors who've made that decision with the stick of the asset of community value. We are where we are, and we do need to make a decision and move on. And the toilet, I would just say that the conversion of the toilet is very much the Marmchurch case. That's what happened in Marmchurch, but then of course there's different location and all that. But it is a model for how this can work. And obviously there's the traffic issue at Stratton that there isn't really in Marmchurch. But I disagree with my esteemed colleague about the loan. I think the loan could be made to cover I know it's a lot of money, but it could cover the cost of the repayment could be covered by rental income. And the VAT obviously is an accounting issue that can be addressed, I suspect. But yeah, so I shan't speak anymore on the D1.
Peter?
Yeah, the VAT thing, that's just on the renovations, public wouldn't have VAT.
So we don't have to get a loan on VAT?
No.
Although this includes that.
I think it might be, but I've said that. And the other thing, historically, since the council acquired that premises, I'd just like to say, I would think how much rental yield has been achieved compared with what's been spent. Not a lot. So,
yeah, but there's big problems, isn't there?
Exactly. That's my point.
Right. Yeah, we need to be careful.
Yeah,
what we say now.
We can't.
That's why I said I don't want to go into too deep.
No,
you see what I mean.
But sorry, I know I said.
But yeah, that's fine. I'm just cautioning care with how you word.
Yeah, the idea is to have it done professionally with the agent, which is actually quite a lot. I was surprised how high the percentage was. 12.5 is quite high. But on the other hand, the alternative is have officers burdened with it and the problems that it can create would be transferred. So yeah, sorry for.
Right, very quickly.
I'm loath to, but just to address the VAT issue one further time, it does have to be paid prior to it being claimed back. So that would mean the council bankrolling £80,000 worth of VAT, and I'm not entirely sure you found a budget to bankroll £80,000 because you've allocated your reserve to the skate park for projects.
Actually, because we would be paying bills in an incremental way, so we wouldn't be paying £80,000 in one go. We would be paying bills as the work happened, and then recouping the VAT every 3 months. I don't think there would ever be a situation where we would need to.
All right.
It's hardly affordable rent, is it? £600 a month.
What do you mean it?
Well, it says here, look, estimated rental income per flat, £600 a month. Well, I thought you were talking about affordable rent.
I thought that was based on local affordable figures, wasn't it?
Well, if you call that affordable, I wouldn't want to be paying it. I think you're way over the top.
Commercial reality hits.
Well, yeah, but they're talking they want to make it affordable rent. Well, that's double what I pay.
I thought previous discussions, I thought we discussed 80% of local market value as being affordable. So was the figure based on that, or?
That's the figure that I asked the agent to provide, what you could achieve.
Right, so we would
Not
potentially be charging, so we would potentially be charging 80% of that. Yeah. But we're not committing to that to anybody.
Even less income now.
Even less now, Mr. James just said. I do understand where this council was at the very beginning to protect the shop and post office. But as has been said, there is an option now to sort of wash our hands of the problems that it causes. And with that in mind, I'd like to propose that option 3 is explored.
I'll second that one.
Okay.
So I did ask to speak before.
This, so I'll just let you have your go, and then we'll vote on that.
That's right. It might make a difference to how people think about their voting. I don't know, and I'm always reluctant to challenge Councillor O'Sullivan on facts and figures because I know he reads and digests stuff far more than I do. But Am I right? What I heard you say was that the rental income would pretty much cover the cost of the Public Works Loan Board.
And well, that was before taking into account the affordability aspect.
Right.
But you could, you can, of course, Derek suggested, you can decide the length of the repayments based on your rental income. So if you think you can cover it in 25 years, cover it in 25 years. If you think you can't, then you can, because you've got the option of 50 years.
Well, if I could just finish the point. In the paragraph that says potential rental income, it says total rental income, 3 flats and 1 shop, between 13,200 and 13,800. Well, but let's bear in mind, we're only going to get 80% of that value if we do go down the affordable route.
Sorry, correction, that was an error. It's actually
26,400 if you combine the two. That doesn't include reducing it to 80% as affordable rental.
So is my paper wrong?
So there was an update.
Oh. In that case, Councillor O'Sullivan indeed is correct. And I apologise.
Okay, we've got a proposal that's been seconded on the table, so which is option 3. Is that correct?
If we vote on option 3, I mean, I think it is worth exploring, but does that rule out the other options straight away?
Yeah, I was going to say this would be a resolution to act, to proceed, isn't it? A full council, yeah.
Right, okay.
Unless it was amended, but.
So I presume then if that wasn't an option to do that, for whatever reason, planning, whatever, then we'd have to
bring it back.
Bring it back. So, repair the ceiling of the existing shop for the interim period, repurpose Stratton toilet block. If option 3 was pursued, there's the salient point I was thinking. Or if option 3 was pursued, the next step would be a pre-up to planning and initial costing for the project, but this would be substantially less than the budget for the full renovation of Lord's Court. So I would assume if the app came back that we couldn't do it, we would have to revisit this again. Yeah. Okay. Is everybody happy? They know what they're voting for? All right. All in favour? Against? 4. Abstain. Councillor O'Sullivan. All the noise you've made, debate. Okay. That was...
I thought you was a mate of mine. All right.
It's the convenience store, isn't it?
Oh.
Very good. Very good, Deputy Clerk. Okay. Right. Item 8, to receive an update on the wheeled sports facility project and agree any associated actions.
Not wanting to add to your heavy night. So planning permission's been submitted. Almost within a few days, the planning officer contacted me to discuss what they foreseen was the biggest issue, which is the biodiversity net gain. So I've just given a kind of bit of background as to the complexities of biodiversity net gains, achieving them, and the situation that we found ourselves in with that particular application. So we have to establish 0.48 habitat units based on the percentages of the calculation that was done. They have to be of the same habitat that's being lost. It can't be anything else, which was our first issue, because with 90% of applications you can provide habitat net gains, which are different to the ones that are being lost. But for maritime cliff and slope makeup, you can't. It has to be a like-for-like replacement. So we've exhausted every avenue that is available. The first is to offset on areas of land that we own. Unfortunately, the areas of land that we own that would qualify because of their location are already too good to try and improve to get the gains. The second is to purchase dedicated, allocated sites that have been put up for net gain sale, which is what was brought previously to the council, and you resolved to take that option forward. I've now been informed that there are no locations within Cornwall that offer what we require. So the first point is that you have to do it within your own county. The second is to then go nationwide, and there's only 23 registered sites, and none of them have suitable units of what we require. So that was where the estimate came in from our ecologist, originally of £20,000 to £60,000. The third and final option is to purchase I can never say this word, statutory credits, which are kind of like central government based credits, and obviously they're much higher because you're not purchasing land, you're just purchasing credits. And we've had the calculation done, and it's obviously an extreme amount of money, 362,500,000, just to take us back to zero. That doesn't give us the 10% plus net gain that we also need. We also very kindly offered a piece of land by a member of the public to see if we could obtain the net gains there. However, given its location, it doesn't seem suitable because it's too far from the coastline to obtain them. So I haven't engaged an ecologist to survey it because obviously more money to do that. So as it currently stands, we cannot receive planning permission for that design in that location because we cannot obtain the net gains that we require. In the discussions we had with the planning officer, they referred it to their kind of chief ecologist and the biodiversity net gain specialist for the county to revisit our application in full, redo all the calculations, and to see if there was anything that could be done. And they basically came back with what is in this paper, and their kind of final part was you could, if you wish to proceed with this design in this location, you'd absolutely have to revisit your design to see if there's anything that can be done. But given its location, the likelihood of success is slim. So there are some other options that I've put on the table. One is to revisit the design of the existing park to see what the contractor could design to make just that existing footprint better. So basically redevelop the existing footprint only. It obviously wouldn't impact then on the specific coastal grassland further up. And it would mean a higher rate of success of us delivering a skate park at that facility. The second one is to do what the planning officer has mentioned, which is to revisit the current design, but having looked at what we're trying to achieve and the scale of it and the amount of grassland, I would say that it's still quite a low rate of that being a successful option. There is obviously the option to purchase the net gains, but it would take the cost of the project in excess of 900,000, which from a cost benefit ratio doesn't really add up. Or you revisit the entire project and look at a different site, but I would urge on the portion of doing that in terms of a time perspective, because we did extensive searches in the beginning of other locations. So I feel like all I do is deliver bad news, but unfortunately, that's kind of where we are. Happy to take any questions. I'm sorry that the paper was so late, but again, I've been waiting on lots of information.
Can I ask, so just, is it because of the size of the skate park and the amount of like land we're technically taking over, that means we have to, you know, have other?
No, so it's the type of land.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, because we are losing that kind of land. My suggestion was going to be to look at the designs completely, and could we make them smaller but still more than what is there now?
Potentially, if you could make the gains, but it's just, sorry, it would just depend on then the cost of the construction for what you would actually get, because you'd still have to make up the net gains as well. So because that site, the specific grassland that grows there because of its proximity to the sea, by taking that away, you're in a negative position of like -23. So yes, you could reduce the size, but then you've still got the cost of the construction, and what you're getting is probably not, from a cost benefit perspective, it's not really worth it. You'd be better to invest money in the existing park that's already concrete, that you could then make as, you know, as best as you possibly could, or pay for them, which I wouldn't advise, or go completely elsewhere, but where, I don't know. Sorry.
I think Sian had her hand up first, yeah.
So this paper is really good actually, because it lays out very clearly what can and can't be done. I think it's kind of important to reiterate, as it stands, we will not receive planning permission due to the inability to meet or obtain the net gains. That is like the bottom line for me. This land is far too valuable in biodiversity standards to be trying to mitigate elsewhere, and there just isn't the resource. Like that's it simplified, isn't it? And I think the only option for me that makes sense in order to actually deliver an improved skate park, which is what we all want for the community, is option one. The others, I think, are just going down blind alleys that we might not even be able to facilitate. And I actually want to see this project do something. So it's one where, as unfortunate it is to constrain it to the existing footprint, if that's what we have to do to protect that area of coastal grassland, it's almost like the planning system is telling us this is really precious and we shouldn't be adding more hardstanding to it. Like, we've gone around the houses, but it's a really, really precious piece of land. You know, on either side of the downs is a triple SI. Like, there's no way that land in the middle is less valuable. We just manage it differently. So I think it's a wider conversation about how we look at our land parcels in our parish. But I would love option one for us to revisit the design if possible, because a lot of the work's been done with the, what are they called? The stakeholders. Obviously people want an improvement. Yeah, and maybe there is still a gap somewhere in our parish for something else, but I just don't think we need to be overcomplicating this. It's just not financially viable. Thank you.
I think if we were to do that, we are going to have a very comprehensive answer for how we've spent 3.5 years and tens of thousands of pounds doing surveys and reports to only find out now, after tendering, hiring a company, designing, consulting, that we can't actually build that.
Yeah, that's what the ecologists.
That is going to be the big question we will be asked. And to be honest, I don't know the answer.
Well, in fairness, I think this particular rule in terms of planning was only brought in February of this year.
It was.
Yeah, but the obvious question we're going to be asked is, and I'm already being asked it, and I've been getting asked it for the last 3 years, why on earth was this the first project we took on as a new council? And it's the last one we're actually trying to deliver. Let's be honest, we dived off down several big projects when we targeted youth with our very first resolution. So, it suddenly changed the rules. Yes, the obvious comeback from everybody is going to be, well, why the bloody hell did you wait so long? Sorry to put it bluntly, but I will be asking that question too. I just have, in fact. And we are going to need a very comprehensive answer to that. I'm sorry to say, but this is shocking. I'm not. I'm asking it to the table because it's the table, you know.
I feel like that's really loaded and the staff are doing that.
I'm not talking about the staff. I'm talking about the people that voted to go down other massive projects without first getting these across the line.
That's fine, but we are talking about the skate park, and
Yeah.
this is specifically an ecology issue, and it can't. It's very clear in the paper that what we're asking for isn't feasible within our budget unless we want to tip the project over the 900k mark, which that is still an option on the table. It's just not one that I feel comfortable with. I don't know.
No, like I said, if we go for option one, we are going to have to explain it to a lot of very, very angry people how we've managed to do this. So I'll go run the councillors, and I'll let the public talk because obviously this is a very emotive subject. Kevin?
I'll put my hands up. I did not know about this until it was just spoken about in the room. I missed this particular paper. It puts us right back to the very beginning. At the very beginning, some of us said that we should be holding Cornwall Council's feet to the fire. Because if you look at where the skate park is, next door to it, there's a bit of car park, and on the other side of it, there's a bit of degraded grassland, which is used as a car park. Now, I would have thought it wouldn't be too much of a stretch for Cornwall Council to either sell us very cheaply or give us a bit of the degraded car park so we could do something with it to satisfy the ecological objections, or indeed to allow the skate park, or potentially allow the skate park to be extended across over towards what is now the toilet block. And if we're talking about utilising toilet blocks for something other than having a wee, then maybe knocking those toilets down and incorporating that across into the skate park, that would make a bit of sense. Because it's all together. You could throw a blanket over where the toilet block is and where the skate park currently is. So it seems to me that we should be lobbying hard and perhaps even lobbying a little bit dirty to Cornwall Council and saying, look, you know, you can facilitate making this happen. We can't at the moment because of the issues with the ecology.
That's a conversation certainly worth having, right? But what I will say is that I've had informal conversations with Cornwall Council officers around some of the scoping of the CTAP project, and because we are likely to be losing Summerleys car park to the sand dune, which I'm not supportive of, you know, but I don't think I'm going to be able to resist it. I will keep trying, but let's assume we are going to lose parts of Summerleys car park, as we already have done. I know that the CTAP guys are already prioritising the spaces at Crooklets as Plan B for those displaced parking spots in view. So I don't think there'll be much appetite for losing any parking area on that site. My mind tells me this is an embarrassment. We'll have to handle it somehow. I don't know how. At the outset of the project, I did think that there were alternative sites that we could have used. I know that certain members of the public didn't want the skate park on this site, so I'm sure they're going to be very happy. Right, but there are other sites that we could consider, and I just think we're at the point now probably where we cut our losses and run from this. The site that I always had in mind, and I had very, very loose discussions with Cornwall Council officers about it, was directly underneath the the croquet lawn and the what we potentially could use for the five-a-side. I mean, I've no idea what the ecological value of that land is, but I know that we have cut the grass. I think it's just broadleaf grass. I don't think there's anything particularly special there.
I didn't think.
Right, but it might be. We don't know. We don't know we didn't know that for those owls, did we? But that's one potential, and the other potential, which Councillor Moore's, I don't know if he wants to bring it up himself, but he's pointed out to me that actually at Bencoolen Play Park there is a very large amount of land that could be used for this purpose. May not be perfect, but it's a good site.
Underwater in how many years? GCP?
Katie's Corner. That's a completely vacant lot at the moment.
You wouldn't fit much in there, would you?
No, it's the whole strip.
You're talking about the big strip of grass between the rugby club, aren't you?
No, just within Bencoolen Play Area. It's in Nortmar. It's probably the same.
I don't know how good your eyesight is.
It's
better than your laptop.
What was Katie's Corner and the piece of grass that's got picnic tables on the elevated section? And you could also pinch a bit of the space between where the wall drops down and the bits of play equipment.
Any bigger than what we've got now?
I think it would be.
It's not far off it. Long and thin rather than which some skaters would prefer probably because there's a gravitational, the way the land slopes.
You get
wiggly ramp could go there.
You get a bit in there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because the way the land slopes away to the roundabout end, the main road roundabout, I'm not talking about the children's roundabout. It would make a natural slope.
Yeah.
Quite good.
Okay.
I know we're at a stage where it's no one's fault and we can't help this. I think it is really sad and I wish that, things had been different and maybe we could have had an opportunity to get going a bit quicker, like before this, change in law came about, but we are where we are. I think it's very sad. I think it'll be really sad if we don't do something more than what we've got, especially for the young people. After I spent so much time with so many young people in Bude recently, and their main thing, they feel like they just don't belong here. Yeah. They don't care. They aren't cared about. And I know that the Wheeled Sports Facility was not just for young people, but they actually felt like that was something for them.
Yeah, I know.
To explain to them now, sorry, we can't do it. So we're just.
Sorry, you came last and it's too late. Yeah, that's effectively what we're gonna.
I just think that.
Yeah, it's appalling. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to vote.
I think potentially if there is somewhere else, then
I don't think they'll believe us.
I don't think they will now either. I don't
need faith in us being able to deliver this.
Absolutely not. But I think if there is, I think we should be looking at other places to put it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would just like to underline the fact that this obviously is an unfortunate situation, but this is no reflection whatsoever on the officers. I mean, I know that there's a great deal of disappointment around the table, and lots of people have commented that it's unfortunate that this wasn't sort of ticked off first as the first sort of project of this council. However, obviously there were huge expectations and much, expectation from members that officers deliver the other projects and we push forward, particularly the Compass Point and so on. So everything has been done as to the best of our ability in terms of delivering those, in a timely way, as well prioritised as possible, and with limited capacity and resourcing available. So I just want to make it crystal clear that this should in no way be sort of considered to be a reflection on the capabilities of any of the officers, and I wouldn't want any of the officers, particularly those in the room at the moment, to feel that they're in any way responsible. And I would like amendments
No,
to support that.
Yeah.
Probably that is aimed at my comments. I will clarify. My comments were not aimed at the officers. It was the officers who were ignored when they advised us in the strongest possible terms not to buy Lord's Court. They were ignored. A decision was made. Those officers then had to act immediately because it was under threat. And a project that should have had priority at that point was sidelined. That is where I was going with it. I'm not blaming the officers. They were completely ignored, and we end up where we were with the previous decision that we've just had to revoke, effectively, if that makes sense. If you interpreted it as me having a dig at you, I wasn't. I'm sorry. You may speak.
Obviously, options 1 and 2 are looking at the existing site. So there could be a combination of doing both at the same time. So we could assess the ecology in detail to see if there was anything that could be done, but also asking them to revisit the existing site design to make that as best as possible as well. So you could essentially do those two things at the same time and keep and you wouldn't necessarily have to just pull out and it's not just like you've got to scrap it and start again. You just go back and redesign it with these requirements in being considered. And actually, until the submission to planning is made, it's not something that you can determine. You have to put it into planning to understand. So yeah. Now we're in, you don't have to just pull out and run away.
I'm not sure he was fast.
Have I got a bit of paper that I could look at? Because I don't know what anybody's talking about.
Okay, Sean.
Yeah.
Cheers.
The danger of speaking twice, but so obviously it is really disappointing. I think it's not so much an embarrassment as just a complete objective reality, what we've got in front of us. If there was a way of incorporating us investigating additional wheel sport provision elsewhere within the parish, within option 1, I would be really happy to propose that, but also with the potential tie-in to option 2 so that we can try and stretch that. I don't know how, I'm trying to form a way to make everyone around the table feel that they are happy with what we're voting for.
There's not going to be a way to get that out of me.
No, but I just, we know what we want, don't we? We want an improvement and, if possible, as much within the remit of...
Yeah, it's not making...
...gain as possible, but then if that can't be delivered on site, we just heard that there potentially... Well, we know, I'm in the play park all the time, there is a vacant tarmac lot there, which is a huge open space, which is pretty dangerous to do ball games and stuff because it's by the road, but it's already the play park. So if there was a way of increasing the provision possible, because a lot of people can't leave their kids to go all the way down to Crooklets, that's a reality as well. A lot of people live closer to Ben Coolen. So if that's possible, to investigate whether there is a way of doing that with the splitting the design. I know there's a lot to incorporate there, but I feel yeah.
I think we have to be clear, this isn't about making us happy.
No,
it's about making the 1,500 local people who have spent years campaigning and voting for this happy after they were told it would happen.
Completely. So how do we make it happen to the best?
Honestly, Sean, I don't think we can make them happy.
Well, then we just have to do our best.
Because we've sold them a dream and we've told them it was going to happen. We told them we had the money. Here's the design. We consulted on the design repeatedly. I was at every single one of those consultations. We spoke to hundreds of people. They had input in that design. They had ownership over that design. And they were told, we've done all the investigations on this land. We've got the money in reserves. This will happen.
Well, I don't think they were told that will happen.
They were.
They were told that would go to the planning process.
Well, yes, but we told them we waited 12 months with doing nothing while we had reports ran on that land so that it would go smoothly through planning.
and we have tried our best, and the officers have tried their best.
Yeah.
The intent of the council is to deliver a better provision. So I think, how do we get to that place without tearing ourselves apart and worrying about what people think? I'd like to please everyone by actually doing something rather than sitting on our hands.
Well, I think we will please some people with these options, but I think we will also face some real anger.
That's the reality of being a politician, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm quite happy. I will quite happily go out and own it tomorrow. I will hold my hands up.
Yeah.
Carry on.
If you were minded to pursue an option potentially in Bencoolen play area, you have already had the existing skate park devolved to you from Cornwall Council. So you potentially have a situation where you would have a town with 2 skate parks, which is a boast that Bideford can't make. And what came out of the more sensible point and the less flippant point is what came out of the consultation with the skaters, as I remember, is the current skate park, there's a confusion of better able skaters with learners, and that there wanted to be some separation. Well, having 2 sites could allow you to have a more simpler rudimentary skate, I'm not a skater, as you can probably guess, a skate area at Crooklets, and perhaps something more advanced, potentially at Bencoolen. I do notice Councillor Purchase has got trees planted on the space we're talking about, so be very careful what I say.
In all the
You almost want to flip it around though, because you've got very young toddlers.
Well, or possibly the other way.
Park,
possibly the other way.
with advanced skaters who are going to be 14, 15, 16, smoking pot, drinking, shouting, swearing. And then you'd have the youngsters down at Crooklets, so the people that are pushing, you'd be splitting the youngsters, if that makes sense. I can see where you're going with it. I think maybe you would flip the age groups, but
I think that could be a good alternative in splitting the design, improving what is there, making, the other way around. So more advanced maybe at Crooklets, and then the other one down at Bencoolen. I think it's not ideal, but I think it could be quite a good alternative idea.
I'd almost want to go to the user group and find out what they think. That was the whole reason for them existing.
We can go to the user group and say, look, we've hit a snag we didn't anticipate. These are our thoughts.
Yeah.
Come on the journey with us.
I think the only way we'll get this successfully is if we actually get buy-in with the community, and the way to do that is to get buy-in from the user group. If this lands tomorrow, well, people, oddly enough, quite a few of them are actually watching. So it's already out there, but without buy-in from them, our big promise, our massive consultation at the start, this entire town will be basically defined by this and BCP. Oh, and flags. Never forget flags.
Some hat trick, really, isn't it?
Oh, it's a hell of a, And 3 own goals, Starkey.
And Lord's Court. Yeah, Lord's Court escape.
You want to speak, Councillor Diffie?
Brilliant.
What's the word?
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I'm reflecting my area of the community.
Yeah, which you've done a lot.
Yeah. Kevin?
I think we've kicked this around and we've come to a consensus around the table, so I would like to propose that the relevant councillors meet with the user group, put these options to them and see what the response from them is. I don't think it is for us around this table. I think I was on a skateboard once, I fell off and never got on it again. That was probably in the late 70s. So it's not for me to decide the best options. I think it is incumbent on us to go to them. So that's my proposal.
Yeah, I'll second that. Everybody happy with?
Scale we give that a timescale?
Oh, I'm fairly sure my phone's going to light up the second I unmute it. Yeah.
And the resolution, if we could, please, rather than
Looking at
just-
the
Peter's got his hand up.
I just wanted to ask that we do some, as positive we possibly can, comms tomorrow on this.
Mm. Well, yeah, that's what I opened with. This is how on earth are we going to sell this? And that is going to take very careful thought.
That was the word.
Good one.
But
I mean, to be fair, within the project, one of the main stumbling blocks, as I understand it, before we hit today, was the cabling that went across the site. So we shouldn't forget that also held up the project very dramatically.
And Cornwall Council.
Yeah.
Cornwall, yeah.
Considerable amount of
Yeah.
use, so don't want
Yeah.
to pin it all on.
right, is everybody happy? They know, or do you want to add a time scale to
I
that?
think it would be good to, just for members of the public who want this to be expedited. I think if we could bring it back to next full council, which is January. Next week. Oh, not next week. No,
I didn't think you meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is January, I mean, everyone kind of goes holiday mode, so I don't know, what do you think?
Feeling is
sensible-
February.
As the person that led the project, what do you think is a sensible time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be having these conversations probably when I get home, but do you actually organise the group with Christmas in the way?
And maybe February is sensible.
Possibly February, because they're going to want to go away and talk about themselves without.
Giving people a chance to digest things properly as well. Yeah.
Okay, so what was the proposal exactly again?
To consult with the Wheel Sports User Group by, to report back by February's full council.
Good report back. Okay, all in favour? Is that unanimous? Good. To receive an update on the youth facility project. Oh, sorry, I did say I would let you two speak. Carry on.
Well, I'd just like to point out to councillors that there will be a silent, if not quite a large proportion of the community who will be glad to see that you're doing something different. I know it has, this roadblock has caused this, but there are some of us who believe that the downs are sacrosanct and should be left as they are, because the more development we put and push and pull, the more we'll get, and then we'll lose that green space that has always been a very important barrier between the two parts of you. I think you'll find that there might be something that we're glad to see.
I'm sure you're right. Yeah.
Moving of this.
You'll have to introduce me to them to lighten the mood at the end of the week, maybe, because I'm going to face the other half.
Yes, talking about the other half, strangely enough, I was working with a chap today who's been to these meetings and apparently he's sent the council letters about it. He was very interested that this was coming up this evening. I can tell you for sure, because he's a very good knows about these things, he is going to hit the roof when he finds out that this isn't going ahead. And something is going to happen at doors.
Oh, God, yeah.
And just to put a little bit of icing on the cake, there are other things like the management of the private partnership that still hasn't been resolved.
Yeah.
There are an awful lot of issues
Yeah.
about the land is very unhappy land.
Oh, there are. Yeah, just unfortunately, yeah. What should have been a good news thing, unfortunately, is not. It's hey ho, on we go. Let's hope there's some good news on the youth facility project. Frankie's face does not.
Doing my job.
That's fine.
So the forum on Tuesday was very well attended, as Councillor Boy mentioned. We heard lots about the need and how poor the provision is locally, I gave an overview of the plans that this council has for a new youth facility. There was lots of questions about the space, the location, concerns about whether it would be big enough or not. And I tried to explain as best I could that the intention is to obviously consult with all of the potential users to understand exactly what their needs and requirements are so that we can build them something that's fit for purpose. And although that existing building isn't the biggest, it's obviously a starting point and it can go some way to providing some provision. So there is an open day on the 30th of January from 4 to 7 for any potential clubs, people who run organisations for under 18s to attend, to basically come along to the site, have a look at what is there, discuss what their needs are, and then we will collate all of that information into kind of feedback and findings, to be presented to council with options of how you wish to proceed. So I will have lovely flyers here for you to take and share with your friends, and please encourage people to come along. It will be communicated lots after the Christmas break with everybody. And councillor, there were a few other councillors in attendance. Yeah, Festival. I don't know. Did you want to talk about some of the other bits?
I was going to talk a little bit at the bit where lead councillors can speak, but yeah.
If it's relevant to this is probably the right place for it, but
yeah.
you want to...
It might be better for Katie to speak first.
You were there as well, I assume. Right?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I mean, my update was just going to be about, so I met up with Sarah Gall quite a few times over the last few months, planning this young people symposium partnership. I think we were both surprised with how many people turned up. We knew a lot of people had shown interest, but when we had to get more chairs out, we were even more surprised. We had a group of young people from Blend that they somehow managed to get out of school for the day. I don't know how, but they did it. And I don't think it would have worked without them there. They spoke extremely well about their needs and their wants for the town. They spoke a lot about how they feel. And yeah, without them, it wouldn't have worked. They were a great group of young people, and I've since thanked them all for attending and for their input, and offered to go down to Blend anytime to give them updates on things that are happening and just to make sure that they continue to feel part of this town and not ignored, which was a lot of the input that we were receiving. We had some really good presentations from Jamie from Blend, Tony Gibbs from Town Team did a really good presentation. Pippa, who does early help, so any young person, she's like the first sort of port of call you would go to if you need support, whether that's mental health or problems at home or whatever. And she gave a lot of numbers that some were quite alarming, and about the amount of young people that are taking up their early help. Was worrying. Frankie gave a really good presentation. I gave a really quick presentation about our hopes of having a youth council. I was then, in the break, jumped on by numerous young people who wanted to know when was the youth council happening, how could we be part of it. They were all extremely keen, and I just, explained a little bit and just said there'll be a bit of waiting, but. And then after the break, we had 3 really important questions that we all had to answer. Those questions were: what would good look like from a young person's perspective? What are our first steps to enabling young people to feel inspired and achieve their potential? And what barriers might we face, and how can we overcome these barriers? And I know every table sort of had very similar things: money, transport, access to education, groups, youth clubs, all of these things were mentioned by pretty much every table. And at the end, we got people to sign up for a steering group, which I'm pretty sure the majority of the people there signed up to be part of the steering group. So it's probably going to be another huge meeting when we all get together. And everyone sort of said their number one thing, what they, they sort of think we should do moving forward. And a lot of it was about having a space for young people, so a youth facility. For many of them, it was just getting the steering group together and having an opportunity to share the ideas. I mean, we had people that were teachers that worked with home education. We had Liam there. It was such an array of people that work with young people. It was very positive, and I was blown away. I think it was really, really important meeting, and it's the first step to a long journey, but a good one.
Just before, how did the young people respond to the idea of the proposed, pitch and putt youth facility?
I think for them, it was just the fact.
Green space says it all.
So I think initially for them, they were just grateful that they had actually been listened to. And the idea of having something for them was amazing, because for majority of those young people, they had never been a part of this town where something had been for them. And that's really sad to think that at no time is that they felt that there's ever anything in this town that is just for them.
Mm-hmm.
So to know that there was going to be something for them was important. I think they too possibly had concerns about the size of the building and what that would actually allow them to do, for them to have their own free space and have like a cafe kind of free space was really important, more so than like a shared space with other groups, was the impression that I got, like to have somewhere that was just for them and they could go like maybe 2 or 3 evenings a week and have this space where they could have this little cafe and, raise some funds, they could keep it going. They were also, and this made me sad, but not, I suppose, because they were so grown up in their thought process, that they were so consumed with money and wanting to raise money and the importance of, well, we know we need money because we can't do it without money, and coming up with ideas of how to raise this money. They wanted to do bake sales and they wanted to do this, and it was just the loveliest, just so, it was just lovely, but it was sad that to them, they just kept bringing up, we need to raise money. I know we need to raise money. We need to, and they shouldn't be worried about that.
No.
They should be just enjoying it. Yeah, sorry.
I think it was Peter first, and
That was right. It's not important.
Everything's important. Do you want to go and then I'll go?
Is that okay?
I'm fine with that. If Peter's fine with that.
It was slightly painful because Frankie did the best job in trying to explain that that's the starting point. If that's too small, we can look at, but they were very much like, no, that's too small.
Yeah.
Who was the young folk or the? I don't actually know who was there, other than obviously I think Jamie and Tony were mentioned.
Yeah,
so the adults representing the group were negative about it.
I don't think it was fully understood, even though I fully understood what Frankie was saying about the, start here, grow. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to...
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'll just say it in a different way. I've lots of practice. So the whole point of that meeting was to listen to evidence, and the main evidence that we've got are the 2 studies, the one which was done by Neatside, and then which in turn was supported to some degree by one of the projects which came out of the work of the town team. But both of those have got lots of evidence supporting them. And I won't go into the facts and figures because it's not in front of me anyway, but Bude does have a deficit in terms of youth provision. And there are lots of young people going without the ability to get together and develop the personality. We all had, I know when I was growing up in the late 1960s and 1970s, there was more to do here in Bude than there is today. Yeah, there was loads more like youth discos and stuff going on all the time. But anyway, never mind. The overwhelming message that I heard was that day was all about creating this steering group to actually define what the project is. The fact that we have got a separate project sort of is a little bit frictional for me, because the space that we've got is very evidently not going to be suitable for everyone. It's just not big enough. Yeah, if you've got 15 kids wanting to run around and play games, that it physically hasn't got the space it needs. My mind tells me that rather than carry on trying to deliver a youth project, we'd be far better off to pause for a little while to listen to what the steering group comes up with and do our best to support them and what their findings are. I think trying to do something separate to them isn't a good idea. And I think that it was good that we tried, because we were trying to do something for a group of people that we realise are underrepresented, and we realise that we do value them. But now this steering group is underway, for my money, I think we'd be far better off to support their actions.
Sorry, I'll just come back on that. This whole project, and again, this started right at the beginning of this council's term, and it was based on the Neatside study, which was all youngsters. So obviously, I wasn't in that meeting, but have we now got I need to word this carefully. People that are involved in youth provision, as in the adults, saying that that's not suitable. You've implied that they're kind of in conflict with what the kids told us.
See that Katie said. So 3 or 4 of the user groups. So Tony was there. He does scouting groups.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's just not big enough. I can't remember the other people, but at least 2 other people said they didn't feel, they had concerns over the size. So what my mind is telling me is that we'd be far better off to put our energy behind supporting that steering group, because I think that they're going to need more space, if I'm honest.
One quick question. Are the steering group trying to provide the same thing that the kids in that Neatside study asked for, or are they after things for something big enough for the clubs they run to use? Because the kids asked us for a space that was sort of unmanaged in certain terms, that was their own.
I want to answer you, but I think Katie wants to.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to word this.
the steering group is not solely for a youth facility project.
Right.
The steering group is to support young people in Bude as a whole. So all of those things that were discussed, whether it was transport, access to education, access to jobs, something, as I say, simple, it's a simple idea, but I know it's quite complex. It's having like a central database that young people can access so they can find out, where is this local group? How do I contact the scout group? Is there any, who do I contact about mental health? How do I contact the early hub? Like things like that. So the steering group is to support young people as a whole. I think a lot of it was about the youth facility, because it is so important to young people that they have somewhere in Bude that they call their own. But the idea was not to take over or come up with a new suggestion. Yes, I have to agree that perhaps the facility is not big enough long term, but we have to start somewhere. And right now they have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there is this building that is pretty much ready to go and can support young people in the short term, then we absolutely should go ahead with that. But I think we should be also very mindful that it is not a long-term solution. It is not big enough to support the young people of Bude. For example, and I know that I think perhaps Jamie from Blend was very much thinking of, having Blend there as a whole. He would not be able to do that. It wouldn't work. even speaking to Liam from LJD Coaching, you know, he even said that the building inside for him would not work or be big enough. However, the outside space would work for him, and he would be able to take some of his groups. For example, he was talking about on a Friday afternoon, he does an education group, and they would be able to go and use that outside space very easily. So I think in the short term, yes, and we need to do something. In the long term, that perhaps is where the steering group could help in what does viewed as a whole need, you know, and I think you'll find that there needs to be something much, much bigger and not just a youth club style area. I think it needs to be somewhere where there are, you know, probably way out of just our remit. It needs to be a much bigger.
Yeah, just to sort of reiterate about the 30th. So the 30th is to talk to the people who, some of which who were in attendance this week, some of which who weren't able to make it, to understand what their needs are, which is the next step in our project plan in terms of consultation with the user group. So until we are able to get that data and understand, we can't really make a decision as to just abandon ship or proceed. It's kind of, it could be that it's a halfway house, that it meets 50% of the user's needs. So there is the option to proceed on that basis, and the other 50% needs something different, and that's where the steering group could facilitate something else. So I just, again, urge to be mindful, positive, it's a good thing, and please attend if you can.
I think it's Kevin and, sorry, Lorraine. And
Yeah, I mean, I fully take on board what Peter was saying. We don't want to be in competition with any other kind of organisation or any other route forward. We don't want to put any sort of block on the aspirations of the users and the steering group. But we've got a resource and we're making that available. And the fact that some people don't want to take us up on that offer, that shouldn't mean that other people that can take that offer up and make use of that space should be turned away. So for me, although it is self-evident that it's a small building and it's not going to suit everybody, but that shouldn't stop us moving forward and trying to find, you know, people who are prepared to accept the constraints of that building and work within it. It seems silly, the fact that there's a little bit of potential friction should stop us offering this building to at least some user groups and some of the young people in the town.
I think this couldn't have come at a better time, actually. I think it's a massive opportunity for the steering group to work with the council. This could not make us look better, because it's not the intention, but it's something that we can work together on. It shouldn't be a them and us. And the provision, yes, it's small, no, it's not suitable, but as we kept being told, it's a start. It is positive, and it's massive. Actually, not in a size way. You know what I mean. And it's a huge opportunity, and there are groups that are going to be able to use it. And as been said, there is going to be a certain percentage that can't. We have the Park House for that. But if we can work together with everyone, steering group, council, I mean, that is the council really. Yes, it's Cornwall Council, but we all just need to work together. And I think this is, so the timing of this is spot on to have this, because it's going to give everyone the chance.
I think Peter wanted to, we don't actually need to make a decision tonight, do we? So.
No. I think this is more like positional stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like how you regard it. So I just remember one other, I'll do one negative and one positive, if that's all right. I'll start with the negative. One of the other resistance points was made by a female who said that she felt the site was she wouldn't want young children, especially girls, to walk in the dark to that site because it was not proximate to built up areas. And it's just bringing that point up that in the dark at this time of year, it is a little bit isolated in a way. I want to read out an email that was sent today by Sarah Ball, the Community Link Officer who worked with Katie to produce this session. And she's written to Cornwall Council key property holding officers. And she's put, "Hi, Scott and Nicola. Bude's hunt for a building of sufficient size to house a youth facility continues. Bude's young people are considered to be disadvantaged due to their geographical placing and a lack of place to meet and be young. The lack of places to go and things to do places them more at risk of antisocial behaviour and mental health issues than their westerly counterparts. Your help in identifying a potential building would be most appreciated. Once identified, we hope to tap into a range of funding opportunities such as CIL, Shared Prosperity and Lottery Community Fund." So I think what I'm saying here is that our ambition to deliver a youth project in Bude is somewhat being surpassed by this user group. What we've got is an opportunity to provide something that could be a valuable part of that. So I'm not suggesting we stop, but I think we should just pause a little while and listen to the steering group to ascertain how they feel what we have to offer could fit in with what their overall desire would be. And I think that's answered very well by, sorry to pick up your bit of paper, but the flyer that went round, you know, let's get them involved, ask them what they want. But for us to imagine that we are delivering the solution is not where we should be.
Right, one more, and I think we'll move on.
In response to the safety, the police did mention whilst we were there that they would look at that and they would look at CCTV and lighting potentially. So although it was a negative, the police did seem there might be a positive thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to receive an update for CTAP.
It's a short one.
Don't apologise for that.
The business case has gone in. It's been submitted, and we're expecting a response next week from the EA to give us an indication on their findings from the business case. There's obviously an awful lot of work happening in the background already to get things prepared, with quite extensive planning booked in for January. So that's all positive.
Excellent.
Hopefully next week I'll be able to tell you a bit more about whether it's going ahead.
Any questions, or should we move straight on to the compass point? Peter's raised his hand.
I don't know, I just feel I've got to say it. Right, so the experience that we've had as a council dealing with other organisations delivering positive agendas hasn't been that great. And I don't want to say everything about CTAP is great. The majority of the principles of CTAP are things that most people can get behind. Right, there's elements of it that I personally can't, because I have trouble with the making space for Sam bit, and I'm talking to council officers probably once or twice a week about it at the minute to try to find alternative ways of looking at it, not just to necessarily cancel it, but to understand the wider impact that particular element of the project will have on Bude. But given our, I don't want to say inability, that's the wrong word, our struggles and the time it's taken us to deliver and support other outfits' agendas, I'm just feeling more and more scared about this and just thinking, I know that we've agreed to do it, but I'm feeling less and less likely that I want to be that involved in it. I want it to be delivered. I think for this council to be delivering it is the wrong thing.
Okay. Anyway.
Is this business with the dunes?
It's more than that. But
yeah,
that's
I know.
A small part of it.
But at the end of the day, it's going to be the dunes taking over everything, isn't it? I mean, I read the sign the other day, what they've roped off. You know, about protect Bude from flooding. Those dunes have never protected Bude from flooding because it's never flooded there.
Just funnels it up the river, to be fair. But
Yeah, exactly. It makes it worse, not better.
Yeah.
Because the last time we had the
Right.
hang on, whoa. The last time we had the big flood coming down, instead of the water being able to spread out opposite the castle, it kept it hemmed in. They're doing more damage than good.
Okay.
Which is why they weren't there when I was a kid.
Yeah, I don't.
They're man-made.
I see your point. I don't want to get into a debate about that because it was just received an update about CTAP.
All I was going to say, and I'm not going to argue the toss about sound or anything. To me, it's the old adage, and I'm sorry if this is kind of not the right language, but it's better to be inside the tent, let's say peeping out, than outside the tent peeping in. And if we decide to, wash our hands of this, then we're also washing our hands of a certain degree of influence that we would otherwise have, and that's the point I was trying to raise.
The way things are going, they won't even be able to launch the lifeboat next summer.
Right. Let's not get into a debate about this. We've received the update. It was short and to the point. Move on to Compass Point project update.
So, flagpole is fixed. It no longer is being held together by some pieces of wood rammed into a post. You'll be pleased to hear. So that's excellent news. The base plate, which goes on the slate floor inside, which was made of metal, which has come away. We're having a new one made of bronze with different fixings, so that will hopefully in the new year be stuck down. The ecologist went up on Monday and the ground is doing much better. So from the gate along Church Path to the top gate has recovered really well and actually a lot quicker than anticipated. The two sections between the two towers partly is still roped off to try and encourage people to not walk on it. So our facilities team are going up there once this storm has passed to aerate areas of the ground that are kind of stuck, so to speak. So some you've got patches of regrowth and then other patches where the ground kind of cracked and dried. So county ecologist has advised us what to do, and then in the spring the remaining soil that is still on site will then be placed down. But on the whole, it's actually doing relatively well, given how poor it was in the beginning. The architect is submitted everything for the building to be, for the listing to be amended. So we didn't actually have it entirely delisted. We're just having the listing amended to show the new location, which is in process. The defects that are currently on site have been sent to the contractor to for him to review, and they will be attending in the new year, close to when the 1 year point is up, and they will undertake all of the defects at the same time to then issue their final invoice to us. Beth has been working exceptionally hard to finalise some of the activity programme. So there are some visits planned next week with Bude infants, I believe, who are attending the site and also going to do part of the Heritage Trail and visit the exhibition. And Matt from the castle is supporting that day, and all of that will be fed into the evaluation, which has to show that we have met the 25 points of requirement for the lottery before we can receive our final drawdown from them. We are hoping to have a final completion in time with the financial year, but it might go slightly over. But that's kind of estimated timescales of complete submission. And then there will be the remaining 4 years of ownership left and then a final defect after the 5 years, at which point the council have the opportunity to decide if they wish to lobby to retain ownership or not. You don't have to make that decision right now.
Everybody happy with?
Mr. Joe.
Right, Chris.
When you were planning this before the new one, before it got moved, I did make the point that everybody knows that the old one was used as a public toilet, and I asked whether an eye could be kept on this to see whether the new one is. So I don't know whether you know the answer to that. Because if it is, then you might need to consider putting a gate on it, which I did mention when I first raised it. Because it would be a pity for such a fine historic building to be spoiled by idiots.
I can't say I've been made aware of anything of that nature, and every time we visit, which is frequently, there isn't any
evidence.
Okay. Go on.
The top gate up there at the Compass Point, just inside, just to the, as you're going upward, just on the left, it's where they capped the manhole. Who capped that? Southwest Water? Yeah. It was it? You couldn't tell them to go up there and paint it a nice colour of green, could you? Because it sticks out like a sore thumb, a big lump of concrete in that middle, all that lovely grass. It looks awful.
Let's hope it wasn't special grass, Darky. Right. Kevin, you had your hand up?
Oh, I was just going to make a point that I've been up to Compass Point regularly and I've seen no evidence of it being used for anything other than the purpose it was designed for.
Yeah. I think the little kiln-like buildings down at the breakwater are the more popular hangout now. Anybody else? No? Cool, right.
The blue rope's still there.
But the big one.
Yeah.
No, it's gone. Did you put it there? Would you like it back?
All right, let's move on to discuss. Oh, how convenient.
Very convenient indeed.
Discuss the provision of public conveniences within the parish and to agree any associated actions.
Lead on this one.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind.
Hopefully you've all had a chance to see the paper, and I'll re-emphasise a point I made in the paper that anything. No, did you not get provided with that with the papers, Mr. Joey?
What we're supposed to be looking at, Ian?
We're talking about toilet stuff.
Oh no, sorry, it was emailed. It was emailed on Friday.
Yeah.
Did Tracy not give it you last week?
I didn't get it in my papers, but I have looked at it.
Oh well, anyway, I'll pray-see the paper. So the point I wanted to emphasise is the options in the paper are not options that are being recommended by officers. The paper was really meant as a means to sort of stimulate debate. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. It's a fast-moving situation. Why, as officers, we were keen for you to have the conversation now. As Councillor Broy has mentioned, the £60,000 that we did receive from Cornwall Council for maintaining Crooklets and Summerlees and the Crescent car parks is due to be taken away from the start of the financial year in 2025. But as I said, it's a fluid situation. What I wasn't aware of was the potential income of the second home extra council tax allowance, which effectively could compensate for the loss of the £60,000. But I think really, as I said, the idea of the paper was just for you to have a think about, do you want to continue as almost uniquely amongst many large coastal towns in Cornwall, providing free toilets that people do not pay for at quite significant cost to the council, or not? On one hand, that's a tourist selling point. Bude has free toilets. On the other hand, it's costing taxpayers to maintain. And I would draw your attention to the 2 cubic metres of water per month that Stratton and Poffel use, and the 200 plus cubic metres of water that Crooklets use. So Stratton and Poffel don't get a great deal of use, yet we are cleaning them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
strangely pertinent because I was absolutely caught short driving back from Barnstable the other night, and I was like, Kilk, public toilets, shot in there, waddled across the car park, like literally desperate, and then discovered that I had to pay to get through the door. And of course, nobody carries cash today. And the compass point was not available either. Yeah. So yeah, but on that note, I do actually need to go. Could somebody take over chairing, whoever?
Don't look at me.
Can I just nominate somebody, or do we need to vote on it?
To suspend, I think.
Suspend for a minute.
We can carry on talking about that.
You could carry on. I'm quite happy. Just behave yourselves.
We continue talking about you.
Yeah, that's why I said this is strange.
Kevin, you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I mean, this came up at F&E, so I've kind of had some more warning on this than most people. And from my point of view, the 60,000, yes, that's an important figure, but we shouldn't forget that the 60,000 is not covering what it costs Bude-Stratton Town Council to provide the services of these toilets. It's more like 100 grand. It's 100 grand, and then the 60 on top of that. So it's going to be 180 grand to keep going pretty much as we are. Now, there's some toilets which are obviously not used. Now, we've already agreed that we're going to look at possible different uses for Stratton. Now, I would suggest that we also ought to seriously look at Bothell. I know we don't do much in Bothell, but those toilets, so they're just not being used.
They are. You go up there for funerals, there's queues.
Well, in terms of the, well, if they're being used, nobody's pulling the flash. So we'll put it like that. Or the water meters may be being bypassed. But I do think we have to look at the provision of toilets now. With a little bit of knowledge from the past about trying to install a payment system, it is often counterproductive and it is often not cost effective because they get vandalised so much. So I think if we're going to be looking to reduce the toilet provision, we need to be thinking about maybe making some of the toilets seasonal, or as I said, closing some of them. Because I personally would find it hard to believe that the return we get from installing payment is going to be that significant to make a dent in that 60k, or let alone the 100k.
So if they're not being used much, they ain't really costing anything, are they? So what's the problem?
They're costing because they're on a cleaning rota. It's manpower. There's two big costs in toilets. One is the water that goes down the drain, and the other is the bloke that cleans them. Now,
if nobody's using them, he ain't going to take long to clean.
Well, but he still has to go out there in his van.
That's all right. It's what he's paid for. You don't want chucking hundreds of thousands. You'll chuck hundreds of thousands at Lord's Court. You're quite happy to do that.
Sorry, I mean, without a chair, we've descended into the chaos.
Do it.
But the point being, and it's a horrible point to make, we may not need so many hours of toilet cleaning, and we may not need so many individuals carrying out the toilet cleaning, and those are big costs.
For me, it's a matter of principle. Cornwall Council yields over £500,000 in from the coastal parts of this area, and it's a matter of principle that they should be paying for it because they're getting the money. It's not up to the council taxpayers of Bude-Stratton and Bothell to be basically subsidising Cornwall Council to make more profit. I'm afraid. And I personally would say, well, surrender the lease on them in March, not the Crescent. Because that's useful for public. No, well, a lot of people don't use it.
Or we just put a sign out here saying 3 toilets.
Play about their own game, really. Surrender the lease one.
Before he gets back.
Race.
So basic. Yeah, but they're a basic need.
Yes.
That's just to make a
No, we'll come back on.
Can I?
This is it.
Can I say something?
Of course it will, because the people.
Would it be okay to say something?
Yeah, you carry on.
Okay.
Of
I suppose
in an investigation.
well, my thinking about this is that we don't necessarily know as yet what the budget situation is going to be. So we're trying to make this decision kind of outside of the budget discussions, when I think potentially we could be making it inside of the budget discussions once we understand the impact of the second homes and we understand the 60,000. So I'm not really 100% sure why we're trying to take this one particular thing and divorce it from those discussions. But the other thing is that, as Kevin has said, the main cost around this is staff time. And if we were actually going to try and save money by closing down toilets or whatever, what we're talking about is effectively redundancies, isn't it? That's how we save the money, and that's a big step to take, and not one that I think we should take particularly lightly. So we need to think about that.
Water is the main cost. Proclus and some of these.
Sorry, I was thinking about like Puffle and so on.
Yeah, but they're just a useful convenience for the people who use them, isn't it? People do use them.
Be interesting to know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Interesting to know how many people use the toilets based on £100,000 having to be raised at 20p a go. You need 500,000 people to use your toilets to make £100,000. That's just the basic 100,000. Would be interested to know roughly how many people use the toilets and how likely is it to make money. But is it 500,000 people?
Right, we'll go back to
Back in order,
back in order. Yeah.
So
I don't know. Did anybody have that? I think Peter knew that me. So
one.
Yeah.
Okay. So my first point of principle is all of the toilets we run are required. I wouldn't want to lose any of them. Right. The problem that we need to address is how we're going to fairly fund them. And asking the taxpayers of our precept to pay for them, I do see as actually unfair. And there are a lot of irregularities in terms of the way that our funding works, and we've talked about this before, because we're providing services in Bude that a lot of the surrounding parishes and visitors to Bude can enjoy. So effectively, you're asking people that live in Bude to cough up the money to run the toilets that all the visitors use, and we don't actually make any revenue ourselves off that. You could say there's a wider economic benefit. So, but anyway, I've had many long conversations with council officers and politicians about this, and culminating in a phone call last night just before I came to the meeting with David Harris, who effectively is, well, he is the deputy leader of the council and is the purse holder. He's the he looks after all the accounts for all council. He said, and I have to believe him on this. I don't know how he did the calculation, but he had spreadsheets in front of him, and he said that if we took last year's precept and added £90,000 to it, because of our increased tax base, it would be cost neutral. That is, the council tax payable by people for the Bude precept wouldn't go up. Right, but I countered that and said that still means that people in Bude-Stratton are paying for the toilets, which I think is unfair. And I went back to him and said, what about the principle of having a levy on the car park? That is fair to me, that people that use those car parks pay a little bit extra to use the toilets, which we manage locally. That's the fairest outcome. The levy was actually effectively lost when Cornwall Council took the decision, I think 2 years ago, to harmonise car parking charges across Cornwall. I actually was against that, and I voted against it and spoke against it at Cabinet and in committee and at full council. But, you don't win them all, do you? David Harris accepted that he believed that that was a fair way to fund the toilets, and he promised to me that he would attempt to explore that with his fellow cabinet members, that a tariff or a levy could be put back onto the car parks where we have those toilets. But he said, don't quote me on this, I can't control my cabinet. Well, I just have, yeah. He said, I can't control my cabinet. He said, I'm certainly not promising it, but I will ask the question. And I said, look, even if you can't do that, could we please have some tapering so that we have the opportunity here to explore locally means of perhaps finding ways of paying for those toilets? And on the principle of user pays, there are councils that have successfully introduced pay on the door systems where you put your credit card or 50p in or whatever it is. And I think that we actually are relatively unusual throughout the UK in not charging for our toilets that most people do. And I wouldn't be afraid of putting a 50p charge on it. Yeah, it's more the inconvenience. If people have got to pay 20p, I don't think they'll worry about paying 50p. But that's for another day entirely. And I think we probably could find that out. I know that I did say at F&E, Boscastle said they spend as much repairing the doors as they do in taking the money for it. But apparently St Ives and Penzance have successfully worked with companies to somehow get doors that can't get vandalised and do work and raise the money. So there's a number of options there for us.
Could I just say that North Devon or North Devon District, whether it's North Devon District Council or the area, because some of those are estate-owned, large parts of Woolwickham and Taunton, and they all have paid for toilets at Woolwickham, at Braunton, and what's the other place in between?
Saunton.
Saunton, Woolwickham, Croydon. And they're all private, I believe a lot of them are privately owned. Now they must have a similar problem with doors and everything, and maybe investigating. They've had charges for 10 years plus.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, the figure for the second homes is closer to 78,000. I mean, you might say it's not a huge difference, but there are so many other things. It would be, you know, so yeah, it is a problem. But the Common Council's attitude, I know, from Poundstock was, we'll just shut the toilets down. There's no negotiation on it, you know. And obviously, it wouldn't pay. It would be wouldn't be very popular to close the toilets there, as we're here. So it is. Yeah. I don't have a quick answer to it, I'm afraid, but it is.
I think the provision of toilets is important. Personally, you know, in my little story, I obviously had options. Females might not have had the same options, people with young children, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, the point, the residents of Bude-Stratton already pay a hell of a lot more than any of the surrounding parishes. And they, as Peter rightly made the point, they do get to use everything for free. So I think it's worth exploring.
I just add to that, I'm not sure where the evidence is that it's surrounding parishioners rather than parishioners of Bude-Stratton and.
Well, yeah, no, I just mean anyone that visits gets those things for free. You know, it's whatever we build, whether it's a youth facility, a skate park, or whatever. There'll be a lot of people using it from surrounding areas that don't pay anything towards it. But I'll go Katie and then Kevin.
Yeah, I think having the toilets is really important because we're a beach town, and to lose any toilets would just, you know. But I'm not against having maybe one set of toilets where you pay for, you know, having maybe present car park toilets where you pay 50p. I've done some really simple, if you want to make £100,000 of 50p, you only need 200,000 people to use your toilets and you've made 100 grand. Is that possible? I don't know how many people use the Crescent car park and would use the toilets in a year, and I don't know how you would work out if the 200,000 people use them, but you know, that would be one way. And then if people can't afford to use the toilet or don't have, you know, whatever, then there are still the other options of the toilet.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, if we go back historically, the town had a lot more toilets, and they've been reduced to the level that they are now because it's not a statutory duty. So we don't have to do it. Nobody has to do it. The Cornwall Council don't have to do it, which is what we're doing in the first place. To me, I think it is incumbent on us to look very carefully at all of the toilet provisions, because if we're going to say, well, Stratton don't get a lot of use, so that can be where the shop is, then there's another set of toilets up by the post office, which definitely won't get a lot of use because most people don't know they're even there. Then there's the possibility of having some seasonality. So perhaps the toilets are open over the weekend in shoulder season, off season, and are open 7 days a week in the summer. I think if we're going to do this properly, we have to remember that it isn't just about these £60,000 that is being withdrawn by Cornwall Council. It is the whole picture. And they do cost an awful lot of money. It's a big, big chunk of the F&E budget for providing the toilets. And in a situation where, you know, we can park our own pet project, so park Lord's Court and just think about youth facility. Park Lord's Court and think about the possibility of World Sports Facility. Would you rather be spending 100 grand a year on toilets, or would you rather have that 100 grand a year available for these sorts of things? And that's the sort of conversation that I think, you know, you can have with the community. You know, what is your priority? Is it toilets, some of which are not used very much, or is it other things?
It's a basic right, isn't it? At the end of the day, you got people, you need toilets. You're talking about Popple. Well, where's the toilets? Right opposite the church. Where do the most people go? Funerals, weddings. What do they call it when they drown babies or baptisms or whatever? You know, that's where people go, and they're going to get all these people turn up. Well, they shut the toilet because Bude Council don't care about Popple.
Yeah, the point is that the town council owns the Popple toilets and the Stratton toilets, the Crooklets toilets and Summerleys and the Crescent are not owned by the town council. They're all located in Cornwall Council owned car parks. And Kevin said quite rightly, they're not a statutory service, and that's always an excuse that Cornwall Council gives. It's not a statutory service. And when I was chairman, I said that neither is the provision of public car parks a statutory service, but you're quite happy to retain those, aren't you? And, you know, that's the argument. People are paying a fee to park in a car park where there is a toilet, and some of that fee should be, you know, they're already subsidising, this council subsidising those toilets more than I thought they were, because the levy hasn't gone up in the last 7 years, whatever it is. But I think hopefully something positive might come out of the discussions that Councillor Boys.
Right. You're aware of the time, so unless there's anything else, I'm going to suggest maybe a working group or a committee picks this up.
See what happens.
You could form a working group.
A wee group. A wee group.
Just need volunteers to sit on the toilet working group.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. I've been working on that all day. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Not been busy today.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What time did you hear that this morning, Frank? Yeah.
Just me.
So sorry.
Oh, I'm writing the toilet paper.
I live a sheltered life.
Right, okay.
Anyway, we'll ask the F&E to get
I was going to say, get in back into the F&E committee and they can make a working group or we group, whatever. I don't mind. To agree the movement of reserves.
Is this to regularise 3 months' working capital?
I have no idea. I was shotgunned into the chair earlier by Councillor Sullivan.
I believe it is. Housekeeping exercise.
Yeah. Kevin?
No, I was just voting in favour.
All right.
Accepting the vote. Yeah, all in favour, yeah.
All in favour? Do you agree it? Cool. Happy days. Receive any updates from lead councillors? Move on. Receive any correspondence from the clerk.
I don't have anything.
Fantastic. To note the date of the next meeting, which will be the 12th of December 2024. Next week, folks. Noted. Meeting closed.